Do you want to know who my favorite drug lord from history is? That's right, Queen Victoria. Back in the 19th century, China was selling loads of goods to Britain, but didn't take the same interest in British goods. Britain was buying so much tea that they were running out of cash. Trade is very, very important. So this is bad news. They had to think of a plan. Some British merchants came up with the idea to sell opium to China. Opium comes from poppies and they are easy to grow. It had been previously used as an anesthetic, but some folks discovered that smoking the stuff made them high. China got hooked. Quick. So quick, in fact, the British started forcing the farmers in the Bengal territory they legally owned to farm poppies exclusively. Thus, the Bengali people starved. This is a relatively small crime the British Empire has committed. This caused the trade that was previously in China's favor to careen over to being in Britain's favor. The Qing dynasty thought this whole opium thing was way whack, dude. So they banned opium 4 times. The British didn't care. They kept on smuggling, and the Chinese kept on smoking. The Western world was limited to trading at one Chinese port under the Canton system. But this didn't stop Britain from selling 30,000 chests of opium. Every single one of those chests weighed 77 kilos. That's about 2,300 tons per year. This kept on going until the Qing dynasty appointed Governor General Lin Zhizhu in charge of stopping the trade. He ordered that all the opium be destroyed by soup? They put saltwater, lime, salt, and opium in a bay and set it on fire. That sounds like soup. There was so much opium to destroy that it took 23 days to destroy it all. He cracked down on the trade, so much that the British decided the Qing dynasty needed to be liberated. This is the beginning of the First Opium War. The British were ruthless. They annihilated the Qing dynasty. When Chinese merchants tried to pray the British to stop, they simply declined. They were dead set on getting their opium trade back. The war lasted 3 years. The Qing dynasty was defeated easily because they lacked the technological advancements in weapons and boats. The war ended with a lopsided treaty. The West forced the Qing dynasty to give Britain Hong Kong and open up 4 more ports: Shanghai, Canton, Ningbo, Fuzhou, and Xiamen. They also forced China to pay an indemnity of $27 million as compensation for the military expenses and opium. Furthermore, the British were given special status and were exempt from Chinese law. France also got those privileges a couple of years later, but this isn't about them. The signing of the Treaty of Nanking ended the First Opium War. Wanna do it again? In the Second Opium War, France and Britain waged war against China, and it lasted 4 years. Yi Mingchen, the new imperial commissioner, was determined to stamp out the opium trade, which was still technically illegal. In October of 1856, he captured the Arrow, a British ship, and imprisoned its crew. The governor of British Hong Kong and the rear admiral of the East Indies and China's Station Fleet bombarded and captured the Pearl River forts, then bombarded Canton, where the imperial commissioner was staying. But this wasn't technically the start, it just added tension. 2 months later, during a riot in Canton, English goods were set aflame. The Chinese were also dragging their feet in implementing the agreements from the last Opium War. This culminated in the British getting their military involved. The execution of a French missionary gave France an excuse to get its military involved. The United States and Russia also got involved, but not their military, was more diplomatically. Britain and France sought the legalization of opium and not technically slaves. They weren't slaves because they were under contract. They're not slaves. Furthermore, Britain and France wanted access to every Chinese port, not just the previously mentioned 5, and imports exempt of tariffs. A little bit of war later, and the involved parties signed the Treaty of Tientsin. China had to pay more compensation, open 10 more ports, fully legalize opium, grant foreigners and missionaries the right to travel within China, and required China to use the egalitarian style of diplomacy. This caused an era of despair to descend among the Chinese people, known as the Century of Humiliation. The British and French proceeded to ransack a palace in Beijing and put the spoils in a museum, then burned it down. These wars threw into question the legitimacy of China's power. They also lost many of their buildings that could have become historical icons. Not only was China's economy now completely egregious, but the people couldn't even be proud to be Chinese. This was one of the worst things to happen to China, and it's all Queen Victoria's fault. What can I say? Drug lords will be drug lords. In modern-day China, there is a saying that translates to, "If you lag behind, you will take a beating." This is directly tied to the two Opium Wars. If China had won the wars instead, they might have been a global power instead of the British Empire. The end.